For example, the curveball logic games often don't have a lot to hold on to. And in those cases, there really may not be as much upfront work you can do. Like some of the games that I love the most are ones where there's a ton you could do up front, but those don't always happen. Many of the games in the 30s, for example, prep test 29 to 38, many of those have a ton of upfront inferences you could do. In contrast, and I'm pulling up the link here, I'll put it in the chat, I have a list of curveball logic games, and in those games, there often is not a lot you can do up front. And in those cases, well, just take the rules, do your best to absorb what general principles they're indicating, even if they're a little bit weird, even if they're more pattern-like, for example, and then you'll do more work over the course of the game. So I'd be looking to draw a distinction between what is curveball in nature, where there's not a lot up front, maybe it's pattern-ish in some way, versus a game with lots of, as Jasmine pointed out, conditionals, right? So when you have the same variables featured in multiple rules, lots of conditional statements, you could often link those together, in which case tons of upfront work worth doing. So very different in nature, even though, of course, they're both logic games, they are very different in how you execute. As Gabby was saying, you might just be doing more work over the course of the game, and don't try to do a lot up front if there's nothing to do. You don't want to waste time if it's not going to happen. When you could be methodical about it, then do it. But don't expect it to happen every single time. And if you're not seeing a clear path forward, again, don't try to make it happen. And so you'll develop a rhythm with it as you do even more and more of them. But I think the key really is to recognize that it's not going to happen every single time. So same variables in multiple rules, likely a connection, lots of specifics, likely upfront work you can do. But if it's not there, just move on. And again, those curveball games where you might only have 2 rules and that's it, or 3 rules and that's it, and they're independent of each other, or they're more vague in a way, then just move on. But make sure you understand what those rules are saying, but don't just draw random diagrams, because that's not going to do any good. It's really more about making sure that you're going down clear paths. So for example, those games in the 30s, there are often 2 to 4 main diagrams, but you're splitting them very clearly. So for example, you might be doing A and B on 1 and 2 versus A and B on 2 and 3. And that's it. Those are the only 2 ways it could play out. And then within one of those 2 possibilities, you can subdivide it even further, but it almost becomes like a flow chart where you're encompassing every single possibility versus just drawing some random things. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.